Did you know that the Hebrew calendar month that we are in now is a very special one? Let's talk about it. Shalom, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today to our podcast, this episode of Did You Know? I'm your host, Rabbi Ira Brower from Shalom Boca Congregation here in Boca Raton, Florida. And today I'm going to be talking about the special month in the Hebrew calendar that we are in right now. It's called the month of Elul. But before I jump into that, I thought it might be helpful to take a couple of moments to explain the difference between the Hebrew calendar, also known as the Jewish calendar, and the calendar that we typically use in the Western world. So, the basic idea is that the Hebrew calendar is based primarily on the moon. It's called the lunar calendar, although seasonally it's based on solar. So it's kind of a mixture of both. So, just to give you a point of reference, as you know, probably there are spring feasts, holidays like Passover, and then there's fall feasts like Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which we are coming up on shortly. And in order for those holidays to stay in the right season, which would be based on solar, the calendar has to be adjusted every so often. So let me back up a moment to say that the Hebrew day is based on Genesis 1, where it says it was evening and it was morning, day 1. So the Hebrew day starts at sundown day before, whereas in our Western world, the day starts at midnight, right? 12:01 would be the next day, 12:01 a.m. But in the Hebrew calendar, sundown starts the next day, and that's why we have what we call Erev Shabbat, the evening of the Sabbath. Sabbath starts at sundown on Friday, but every day of the week in the Hebrew calendar starts at sundown. And then we go to the month. Well, the Hebrew month is based on the moon and the cycle of the moon, not the sun. So the new month starts with the new moon. Rosh Chodesh is called in Hebrew. And then the middle of the month is the full moon. And some holidays actually we are told to start on the full moon, the 15th of the month or the middle of the month. And some start on the new moon, the beginning of the month. So I hope I didn't confuse you too much with all that. And so we start the new year in the fall, which is Rosh Hashanah, and according to the religious calendar, not to get it even more confusing, but according to Exodus, the Passover is the beginning of the biblical calendar in the spring. But over time, the tradition is that the new year starts in the fall with Rosh Hashanah, with the month of Tishrei, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. But the month prior to Tishrei, which is the last month of the year, is called the month of Elul. So why is that important? Well, back in the Middle Ages or before that, the month of Elul was considered a time that led up to the fall feasts or the fall holy days of Feast of Trumpets, which we now call Rosh Hashanah, and then Yom Kippur, which is 10 days later. So the month of Elul was seen as a preparation time to prepare our hearts for the time where we will enter into a time of repentance, atonement, and so on. And so the rabbis saw the month of Elul as a whole month where we are to prepare our hearts through slichot, which is the Hebrew word for forgiveness, where we are to ask forgiveness from one another if we've offended someone during the prior year, or that we ask God for forgiveness. The word slichot comes from the word slicha, which means forgiveness, to forgive. And so we come before God and ask for his forgiveness. There was also a Hasidic tradition that came about in the Middle Ages as well, that Elul is a time when the king is in the field. So what does that mean? Well, in the ancient world, it was a tradition that there were times when the king, literal king of the land, would leave his palace and he would walk among the people. Obviously, a king in the palace was not so accessible to the common folks, right? You had to be a nobleman or you had to be some high, important person to be able to come before the king. But there were certain times when the king would decide to come out of the palace and he would walk among the peasants, so to speak, the farmers and so on, and where he would be accessible, where people of the land could just go up to him, talk to him. He would put on normal garments instead of his, kingly garments and so on, and walk among the people. So the tradition came about in the Hasidic world that during the month of Elul was a time when the king, meaning God himself, left his palace and during the month of Elul became more accessible to the people, to us, right? To the people that couldn't necessarily always access him. And it became a time where he would listen more, we could talk to him more, and so on. And interestingly, that the word Elul, and by the way, the calendar months, the names of the calendar months became sort of codified during the Babylonian time when Israel was in exile in Babylon, and a lot of these traditions became established. And the month of Elul in Hebrew, the letters also are an acronym for Ani L'Dodi V'Dodi Li, Aleph, Lamed, Vav, Lamed, for any of you that know in Hebrew. And it became an acronym for Ani L'Dodi, L'Dodi Li, which comes from the Song of Solomon, which literally means, I am my beloved and my beloved is mine. Again, indicating this time of more intimacy with God that was available during this month. Now, for us as followers of Yeshua, we see an incredible parallel to our relationship with God. And first of all, we would say that, of course, God is accessible anytime, not just 1 month out of the year. That as followers of Yeshua, though, that God, in a sense, did leave his palace. He left his throne of heaven, came down in the form of Yeshua, the Messiah, and he dwelt literally on the earth for 33 years and took on the garments of the common folks at the time and walked among them, walked among us, for that season to show the character and nature of God to the people. And then ultimately, he laid his life down on the cross during Passover time. And after 3 days, rose from the dead, walked among the people for another 40 days, and then returned to his palace in heaven. However, before he left, or I should say after he left, he promised that he would be among us every day, all times, through the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, who now is with us. And so the King is in the field at all times, accessible to us whenever we need him. But this idea, this metaphor of Elul, the month of Elul, where the king is in the field, is a beautiful picture where, while he is accessible at any time for us, but there's something special about the month of Elul, even for us as followers of Yeshua, that we can draw near to him in a special way. And one of the things I love about the tradition of the Kings in the Field, the month of Elul, every day in traditional synagogues, every morning when folks are gathered for prayer, the shofar is blown every day, and also a special psalm is read. It is Psalm 27, which I would like to read for you now, a psalm of David. And it says, Adonai is my light and my salvation. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom should I fear? Adonai is the stronghold of my life. Whom shall I dread? When evildoers approach me to devour my flesh, my adversaries and my foes, they stumbled and fell. Though an army camp besieges me, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then will I be confident. One thing have I asked of Adonai, that will I seek. Let me stop there for a moment. In the Hebrew, it doesn't say one thing, it just says echad, one, right? But it's translated to make sense. One thing have I asked of Adonai that I will seek. What is the one thing that David, who's the author of this psalm, is asking? It's this: to dwell in the house of Adonai all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of Adonai and to meditate in his temple. For in the day of trouble he will hide me in his sukkah, in his tabernacle. Conceal me in the shelter of his tent, and set me high upon a rock. Then will my head be high above my enemies around me. In his tabernacle I will offer sacrifices with shouts of joy. I will sing, yes, sing praises to Adonai. Hear, Adonai, when I call with my voice. So now he's going from speaking to an individual, now he's speaking to God, praying to God. Hear, Adonai, when I call with my voice. Be gracious to me and answer me. To you my heart says, seek my face. Your face, Adonai, I seek. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my help. Do not abandon me or forsake me, O God of my salvation, O God of my Yeshua. The Hebrew word for salvation is Yeshua. Though my father and my mother forsake me, Adonai will take me in. Teach me your way, Adonai, and lead me on a level path because of my enemies. Do not turn me over to the desire of my foes, for false witnesses rise up against me, breathing out violence. Surely I trust that I will see the goodness of Adonai in the land of the living. Wait for Adonai. This is a word for us. Wait for Adonai. Be strong. Let your heart take courage and wait for Adonai. So I want to encourage you in this psalm, Psalm 27. Maybe you would also join us in reciting this psalm every morning to remind us of who God is, to remind us of his goodness, of his love, and how good and pleasant it is to be in his presence at all times, and to remind ourselves that the King is in the field every day, that God, through Yeshua, through his Spirit that resides in us for followers of Yeshua, a reminder for us. But perhaps you're not yet a follower of Yeshua, a follower of Jesus. And these words would be an encouragement to you to draw near him during this time, this season of Elul that precedes the holy days that will be upon us in a couple of weeks. So if this has touched you at all, if this has even challenged you, if this has even raised questions for you, encourage you to post comments or questions in the chat. Please like, comment, and share, and stay tuned for our next episode, which will dive into the season of the holy days. Thank you for watching, and please like, comment, subscribe, and share to our Shalom Boca YouTube channel, and we'll see you next week.